CEO exposes unbelievable truth behind single dad's bag. Mother's amazing words changed everything. Rain drummed steadily against the roof of Jake's delivery truck as he navigated the winding streets of his small Midwestern town. He glanced at the worn dashboard, a mosaic of grease stains and chipped plastic, feeling the weight of unpaid bills pressing heavily on his chest. With every package he delivered, he could hear the whispers just a single father, they'd say with judgment in their tone, as if his worth was tethered to his title and possessions. At 32, the world often judged him by his frayed backpack, a relic of struggle rather than a badge of honor, while he battled to provide a better life for his spirited 7-year-old daughter, Lily. Never lose faith in yourself. Your worth isn't defined by what you own but by who you are. His mother's words echoed in his mind, a constant reminder that defined his resilience. Despite this, the reality of his life felt heavier than the sturdy truck he relied on. The responsibilities, the financial burdens, the creeping shadows of societal judgment, they coiled around him, tightening with every struggle. Each nighttime dream of security and success clashed violently with the bitter taste of desperation that lingered in his throat. As he arrived at Sarah's South expansive estate for his delivery, thunder rumbled overhead, mimicking the turmoil within him. Sarah, a powerful CEO wrapped in designer threads, was the embodiment of success he could only dream of, her world so far removed from his own. Handing over the extravagant designer bag, Jake noticed her keen gaze lingering on the frayed edges of his own backpack, a worn testament to his unwavering dedication to his daughter. A flicker of recognition, was it empathy? Sparked in her eyes as she invited him to chat. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Sitting there, something flickered in Jake. Sarah spoke of ambition and possibility, but all he could think of were his mounting pressures. His phone buzzed with reminders of bills due, the rent creeping into the back of his mind as he tried to remember Lily's infectious laughter. Could he possibly belong in a world that seemed so foreign? Each question tugged at his spirit, wrapping him in chains of self-doubt. What if he stepped forward only to be cast aside, another failed project in a world that valued wealth over sincerity? That afternoon, as rain cascaded down, Jake's internal battle intensified. The judgments of those around him wrapped around him like a suffocating blanket, each whisper of perceived inadequacy igniting a pang deep within. He questioned his worth more than ever, feeling the anxiety rise like bile in his throat. Would taking a chance mean risking the one thing that mattered most, Lily's love? What if the leap he now faced was just another failure waiting to happen? As Sarah's words of encouragement floated in the air, he felt a pulse of hope flickered dimly against a backdrop of fear. Yet, doubt gnawed at him. Was he strong enough to rise above what the world saw? Would he have the courage to believe in his own worth, or would he succumb to a life defined by others' perceptions? Sitting there, the rain continued to pour, an unlikely companion to his growing anxiety as the uncertainty of his future weighed heavily, pressing on him like the closing of a door he desperately wanted to push back open. Jake sat in a chair across from Sarah, the elegant CEO whose very existence affirmed everything he feared about himself. The rain's rhythmic percussion outside felt like a backdrop to the storm brewing within him. Their conversation shifted from casual to profound, and he realized how much he craved mentorship, yet recoiled at the thought of asking for help. Could someone like him, an unrefined delivery driver, dare to seek guidance from a woman whose life seemed so utterly detached from his struggles? As Sarah spoke about resilience and grit, her voice cut through his doubts, resonating with echoes of his mother's wisdom. That persistent fire of determination flickered within him, though layering doubt threatened to extinguish it. Here was an opportunity, one he had always been too hesitant to embrace. But what did he even have to offer? What could a single dad with a ragged backpack truly bring to a successful entrepreneur? The rain continued to pour, mirroring Jake's mixed feelings. "Can I ask you something?" he finally muttered, finding courage amidst self-reflection. "How did you get past the fear of failure?" For a moment, Sarah regarded him with an intense gaze, as if she could see straight through his uncertainty. "You don't," she said flatly, startling him with her candor. "You live with it. You push through anyway. Growth comes from risk, Jake." Her honesty struck a chord deep within him. As he listened to her story of setbacks faced and failures endured, something shifted. It was a realization that life's messiness was universal, that her polished success was built layer by layer on a foundation of challenges. Beneath his frayed exterior lay untapped reservoirs of resilience and skill, qualities he had long thought insignificant. For the first time, he opened his mind to the idea that he might be more than just a mere statistic in society's judgment. An idea lodged itself in his mind. The delivery driver identity could transcend its superficial limitations. Why not pivot his career into something more? His daily interactions and the ground-level view of his town gave him insights that a boardroom could never encapsulate. Rather than succumbing to doubt, he could forge a path that was uniquely his own. But that realization brought with it a surge of apprehension. What did that new path look like? Were there steps to take or skills to learn? He had spent years delivering packages. Could he now deliver ideas worth sharing? He pictured Lily's bright smile urging him on, and suddenly, the dream began to take shape. Fumbling with his words, Jake ventured, "Do you think I could? Would it be crazy to think I could start a side business?" The words tumbled out, surprising even himself. Sarah's eyes brightened. "Not at all. The most successful entrepreneurs often start with what they know." "What would you want to do?" As he began to explore possible ideas, enthusiasm clawed its way into his chest. The fog of uncertainty that clouded his mind started to lift, and clarity surged with possibility. But as they continued exchanging ideas, a sense of urgency swelled alongside emerging determination. Time was of the essence, bills still loomed, payments needed to be made, and Lily's needs were relentless. The rain began to subside, offering a glimpse of sunlight filtering through the clouds, coupled with a pull to take action. This moment could redefine his story, but was he truly ready for the leap? The thought alone made his heart race, yet the potential to shape a narrative of his own was intoxicating. Jake left Sarah's estate, armed with a newfound sense of direction, but uncertainty hung heavily still. The streets glistened with rain, reflecting flickers of light as if illuminating the path ahead. But doubt still lingered, whispering that change might not come as easily as he hoped. The crux of his journey lay before him, and the question loomed: how far was he willing to go to embrace the path laid out, one fraught with risks yet promising returns? As he climbed into his delivery truck, he realized the time had come to face his demons. The journey had only just begun. The roar of the engine snapped Jake back to reality as he pulled away from Sarah's estate. The rain-soaked streets glistened like a promise, tempting him to seize his aspirations. Yet, with each turn of the wheel, a thrum of anxiety pulsed beneath his surface. What was he really getting into? He couldn't just want it, he needed a plan. His mind raced through options while navigating familiar routes. He thought about the many conversations he'd had with folks during deliveries, little snippets of community life that might hold valuable insights. What if he could turn that into something meaningful? By the time he made it home, ideas swirled like a tempest in his thoughts. But upon entering the small apartment he shared with Lily, reality crashed down. The pile of unpaid bills on the kitchen counter felt like a barricade against his dreams. "Hey, Dad. You're home early." Lily's voice chimed from the couch, her face a burst of sunshine amidst the grayness in Jake's mind. Her excitement momentarily warded off his worries, allowing a smile to crease his face. "Yeah, just got caught up in traffic," he replied, knee-deep in calculated bravado. Inside, he questioned whether he really had the strength to start something new. "Can we play a game?" she asked, bouncing on the couch, a welcome distraction from the weight pressing on his chest. "Sure," he responded, though his thoughts lingered on his burgeoning idea. After a round of their favorite game, Jake found himself reflecting on Lily's enthusiasm. It was easy to lose sight of what truly mattered when wrapped up in worry. He realized that to build something for her future, he first had to believe in himself. Distraction was fleeting, he needed focused action. Determined, he pulled out the notebook that had become a repository of half-baked ideas and jotted down everything relevant business concepts based on his delivery experiences, insights about customer service, local market needs. It was still a chaotic jumble, but it was a start. As he wrote, something shifted within him. A sense of empowerment began to replace the fear he had carried. Each letter he penned breathed life into what had previously felt impossible. But the clarity was sporadic, churning with anxiety as the implications of his endeavor loomed larger. Was he skilled enough? Would people take him seriously? Could he juggle the demands of a new venture while being the dad Lily deserved? Each question peppered his thoughts with doubt, but his newfound resolve pushed him forward. Yet then, as if mocking his ambitions, the incessant beeping of his phone drew him back into the present. A message from his employer flickered on the screen: "Need drivers for the weekend delivery rush. Let me know if you're available." The financial structure of his current job wrapped him in security, yet the call to his aspirations roared louder. What would he gain from extra hours of work at the expense of his burgeoning ambition? Shifting uncomfortably in his seat, Jake faced another pivotal decision. Should he cling to the safety of his job or leap into the unknown, trusting that he could balance both worlds? As the weight of the moment pressed down on him, he began calculating how many hours it would take to save up for the launch of his idea, racing against time to see if the sacrifice would be worth it. Reflection morphed into urgency as the stakes felt increasingly high. The opportunity to put a meeting in motion, whether it led to success or failure, awaited him. Jake didn't know how far the leap would take him, but with the tension brewing inside him like a coiled spring, he knew he was on the brink of something significant. And as he sat there, grappling with his choices, a new message pinged onto his phone. A contact he hadn't spoken with in years, someone whose unexpected advice could tilt the future in his favor. "Hey, Jake. Long time. We should catch up." His pulse quickened, potential doors began to unfurl. What could this conversation lead to? It might be the pivotal moment he needed. Jake drew a deep breath, preparing to grasp this new opportunity with both hands. The next chapter of his journey awaited him. Jake stared at the message flashing on his phone, the words pulsating with a weight he hadn't anticipated. The sender was Tyler West, an old friend from high school who had carved out a niche in the entrepreneurship sector. Tyler had always been a few steps ahead, his ventures booming while Jake wrestled with ordinary survival. That friendship had faded, overshadowed by the relentless grind of adulthood and responsibilities. Now, however, it felt like a lifeline. He felt a mix of nostalgia and apprehension. What had Tyler achieved since their paths had diverged? Would reconnecting with him unveil opportunities or just dredge up insecurities? He hesitated, fingers hovering over the screen, battling the urge to reply immediately. Instead, he placed the phone down, craving a moment for introspection. Lily's laughter floated in from the living room, and for a brief second, the gravitas of the situation lightened. Yet, reality surged back. Was he ready to bring someone like Tyler into his orbit, especially now while he was still trying to muster clarity for himself? His thoughts ricocheted like a pinball. Tyler's advice could furnish him with insights on developing his business model or navigating the treacherous landscape of entrepreneurship. But would he still resonate with someone who had been lost for so long, someone who felt so far behind? Jake opted to reclaim control of his narrative and respond. "Hey, Tyler. Good to hear from you. Let's catch up soon. What's on your mind?" As the message sent, Jake felt a twinge of relief. He was taking action, no longer trapped in hesitation. The voice inside him scolded for being reactive, yet another reassured him decisiveness could open up new possibilities. As the evening progressed, the kitchen table transformed into a sprawling landscape of ideas, pages of notes scattered like a fractured puzzle waiting to be pieced together. Jake's anxiety morphed into focused determination as he began drafting a plan. Could his initial concepts evolve into a legitimate business? The blank spaces in his notebook were brimming with potential, and he craved the momentum that stems from a plan coming together. He began segmenting ideas based on what he learned from the community during his deliveries, identifying local needs he could fulfill. Each line he wrote felt like a tread on solid ground after floundering through uncertainty. Yet, A sense of dread lingered, a shadow flirting at the edges of his ambitions. What if nobody cared? What if he was just chasing shadows? Days turned into a blur, and soon, Tyler responded, suggesting they meet at a coffee shop downtown. Jake felt both an apprehensive thrill and an undercurrent of self-doubt as he checked his reflection in the mirror before heading out. Could he present his ideas with authority? Would Tyler support his vision or expose the chinks in his armor? Arriving early, Jake fidgeted with his phone, rehearsing his pitch mentally while scanning the cafe's entrance. He found himself obsessively dissecting the last deliveries he'd made, the smiling faces, the gratitude, the little interactions that often felt trivial. They weren't just orders, they were insights into what people needed. The door swung open, and in walked Tyler, exuding an effortless charisma that made Jake's pulse quicken. The two greeted each other awkwardly, both tentative yet eager. "Wow, it's been a while," Tyler said, his gaze surveying Jake. "What have you been up to?" Jake swallowed hard, the fragility of his ambition against the backdrop of Tyler's seasoned confidence starkly apparent. The moment of truth was at hand. Not just about sharing ideas, but about extending his lack of expertise to someone who was clearly thriving. "I've got an idea I'd like to develop," Jake started, the words tumbling out quickly. Every nerve in him electrified with anticipation. But just as he began laying the groundwork, he sensed a subtle shift in Tyler's demeanor. A spark of interest flickered momentarily, then retreated behind a wall of restraint. In that moment, Jake realized this could be more than a conversation about business. It was the threshold to either validation or an undeniable confrontation with his insecurities, exposing his vulnerabilities in a world he yearned to conquer. And as Jake unfolded his vision, trying to breathe confidence into the words, he caught a flicker of skepticism in Tyler's eyes that set off a wave of trepidation. What would this encounter ultimately unveil? With the stakes rising higher than he had imagined, he could almost feel the ground shifting beneath him, and the question loomed large: would this conversation shape his trajectory, or would it shatter his aspirations completely? The air in the cafe hummed with the murmur of conversations, the whir of the espresso machine providing a backdrop to Jake's growing unease. He could have been tackling a presenting issue with the neighborhood council, or pitching his ideas to a room full of investors. Yet here he was, sitting across from Tyler, feeling like the amateur in a world of professionals. As he began defining his business idea, the enthusiasm in his voice faltered, overshadowed by a tidal wave of self-doubt. "Basically, I've been doing deliveries for a while now, and it struck me there's potential to create a service that anticipates needs." Jake's voice trailed off, realizing he had lost Tyler's gaze. The entrepreneur was busy scrolling through his phone, the light illuminating a face that seemed absorbed in everything but Jake. Had he already lost Tyler's interest? "Look, I see what you're trying to do here," Tyler interjected, still scrolling, barely making eye contact. "But have you defined your target audience? Do you have a budget? What's your marketing strategy?" The questions felt like jabs, quick and unkind. Each one he hurled Jake's way chipped at the fragility of his confidence. This was no longer just a catch-up, it felt like an evaluation, a test against the standards Jake had long felt he could never meet. "I'm still refining those details," he replied, his voice quieter, more hesitant. "I thought if I could just..." "Just what? Transform your side gig into a startup overnight?" Tyler glanced up, now eyebrows raised. "You need to understand that having a good idea is just the beginning, Jake. Execution is key." The words hit like a punch. Execution. He had been yearning for affirmation. Instead, it was a provocation. Did he even have the capacity to execute anything worthwhile? Feeling heat rising in his cheeks, Jake clenched his fists, fighting against the wave of frustration mixed with anxiety. An earlier thought flickered back: was this not supposed to be a positive connection? Despite the unease in the conversation, something inside him sparked a realization. This was a moment rife with potential. Was it really Tyler's skepticism that unnerved him, or was it his stark awareness that he wasn't fully prepared? The truth was dawning: he needed to lean into this discomfort, let it fuel him instead of paralyze him. "Okay, fine. I see that I'm underprepared," Jake finally admitted, an edge of defiance creeping into his voice. He leaned forward slightly, his fingers released their death grip on his coffee cup. But I am committed to evolve. I want to learn. If I'm naive, I need to know it now, not later. What would you do? Tyler seemed taken aback by his sudden intensity, momentarily pulling away from his own reservations. There was a flicker of curiosity in his eyes, maybe even respect. That's the spirit, Jake, he said, his demeanor shifting. You've got to train yourself to act in the face of uncertainty. It's about resilience and adaptability. Have you ever thought about seeking out mentorship or connecting with local entrepreneurs? Jake thought for a moment. The idea of finding a mentor had always seemed somewhat unattainable, like reaching for something just outside his grasp. But Tyler's suggestion resonated deep within him. It was actionable. It meant connecting with others who were knowledgeable, driven, and willing to nurture an emerging idea. I haven't gone that route, but he hesitated, now feeling empowered by the challenge presented. If you think that could work, maybe I should start organizing my thoughts around that direction. As their conversation flowed into a constructive exchange, Jake felt a newfound composure settle within him. The haze of insecurity began dissipating, replaced by clarity. He realized that shifting the focus to learning instead of merely performing would liberate him from the chains of expectation. When their meeting ended, Tyler offered to connect Jake with a few local startup groups. As Jake left the cafe, an exhilarating blend of fear and eagerness sparked through him. He was not just a man clutching at dreams anymore, he was forging a path, shaky and uncertain, but undeniably his. With determination calling to him louder than ever, Jake glanced at his phone as a new message lit up the screen, another potential contact from Tyler. Suddenly, a wave of possibilities washed over him, fueling his ambition. Was he ready to embrace this network of entrepreneurial minds, or would he falter in the dynamics of collaboration and competition? The journey was just beginning, but this newfound drive could challenge everything he believed about himself. And just as Jake stepped out into the bustling street, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was merely a prologue to a much larger narrative waiting in the wings. What awaited him next would test not only his business acumen but his understanding of community, ambition, and ultimately, himself. The overwhelming noise of the city enveloped Jake as he navigated the streets, each sound multiplying his excitement and anxiety. With a sense of purpose now driving his steps, he couldn't help but scrutinize each face he passed. Do they feel this intense uncertainty, or are they merely familiar roles in their own narratives? Shoving his phone into his pocket, he forced himself to concentrate on the task ahead, building his network. By the time he returned to his modest apartment, Jake felt a charged anticipation infecting his thoughts. He plopped down at his makeshift desk, cluttered with takeout menus and battered notebooks. First things first, respond to Tyler's message and explore the startup groups he had mentioned. Dread flickered through him. Could he really latch onto this community? Focus, he muttered to himself, rallying against the self-doubt that was creeping back in. He logged onto social media platforms, the digital noise around him hazy as he began investigating local entrepreneurial groups. Scrolling through endless feeds, he felt locked in a tug-of-war between fascination and intimidation. Each venture highlighted was a glimpse of success he hadn't achieved, yet he sensed that each story was also riddled with struggle, potentially echoing his own experience. The hours melted away, punctuated by nervous clicks and quickened breaths. Finally, after an exhausting search, he pulled together an email crafted with raw honesty. "I'm a budding entrepreneur searching for mentorship and collaboration," he typed, his fingers trembling slightly. Yet, as he wrote, a rush of clarity swept over him. He was not simply seeking guidance, he was forging connections based on shared struggles. Hitting send, Jake leaned back and exhaled, victorious in this small yet profound act of seeking. It was a crucial first step, a declaration of his intent to be part of something larger and, potentially, more meaningful. Over the following days, Jake found himself enveloped in a whirlwind of new energy as responses began to come in. Each message held the possibility of transformation, but also the raw sting of his lingering insecurities. What if these mentors expect more from him than he can deliver? What if they see through his bravado and reveal the scared amateur that lay underneath? The fear of failure gnawed at his resolve, but each reply encouraged him to step further out of his comfort zone. Among the many contacts, one stood out: a woman named Mia, a well-established entrepreneur who had once walked a similar path. Her pragmatic yet nurturing tone and her response struck a chord. "Your struggles are your greatest assets," she had written. "Let us meet, and we can figure this out together." Coffee with Mia was set for the following week. As the date approached, Jake's excitement twisted with unease. Was he ready to bare his vulnerabilities to someone who had already achieved what he yearned for? Confronting his own limitations sounded more daunting than keeping them hidden, but he recognized he needed to peel back these layers if he was to grow. That day, an unsettling mix of hope and dread filled his chest. He stepped out of his apartment, heading to a local cafe, echoing the place where his earlier anxieties first met opportunity. Mia was already seated when he arrived, focused, articulate, and radiating an unmistakable confidence. The conversation started mildly, exchanging pleasantries about the weather and favorite coffee brews. Yet, beneath the surface, Jake sensed the building tension inside him, a brewing storm of self-expectation. "So, tell me about your vision," Mia prompted, her eyes narrowing slightly as she studied him. Jake swallowed hard, the words swirling in his head. Because now, more than before, he was at a crossroads. Could he present a vision cultivated through ambition but tempered by insecurity? Would he expose his fears, or was this a moment to showcase his resolve? "Actually," he began slowly, "I need to be upfront. I don't have it all figured out yet. I wrestle with each detail, and some days, it overwhelms me." At that moment, Jake realized this was not an admission of weakness, but an opportunity. Self-awareness could fuel his truth, embracing uncertainty only expanded his potential for growth. As her expression shifted from curiosity to understanding, he recognized that facing his fears might not only convince Mia of his dedication but illuminate his path forward. The conversation flowed effortlessly from there, building beyond transactional exchanges to shared experiences, lessons learned, and heartfelt aspirations. Each word exchanged felt like constructing a bridge connecting uncertainty and innovation. And as the cafe buzzed around them, Jake's heart raced with the realization that he was on the precipice of something significant. Just like an artist unveiling a piece, he was embracing his journey, one brush stroke at a time. With Mia's nod of approval and the conversation deepening, Jake felt an awakening within him. He had unlocked a piece of himself through vulnerability that could not only foster connections but buoy his spirit in the entrepreneurial landscape. But just as he began mapping out the logistics of his newfound alliance, Jake's phone buzzed violently on the table. Another urgent message, this one with the unmistakable weight of opportunity, was waiting. Would this open door lead to unexpected challenges or groundbreaking revelations? The next phase of his evolution was about to unfold, and he craved to know what would be demanded of him next. Jake's heart raced as he pulled his phone closer, the screen illuminating his face like a spotlight in the dim cafe. The message was from a startup accelerator he'd applied to, after Tyler had nudged him into considering it. "We've reviewed your application and would like to invite you for an interview next week." It was the kind of notification one dreams of, a beacon of validation, yet it dug into the festering insecurity that had begun to surface during his conversation with Mia. A whirlwind of emotions spiraled through him. Excitement clashed with panic. This was an incredible opportunity to validate his identity as an entrepreneur and gain access to vital resources, but the looming interview also magnified his greatest fears. What if he froze under pressure, failing to articulate his vision as convincingly as Mia had made him feel on that day? What if he didn't belong in the same room as those seasoned applicants? The doubts tumbled in ceaseless waves. "Hey, you good?" Mia's voice broke through his spiraling thoughts, concern etched across her features. She had caught him staring blankly at his phone, his earlier spark seemingly extinguished. "It's the accelerator," Jake admitted, voice barely above a whisper. "I have an interview in a week." "Jake, that's fantastic. This is just the kind of momentum you need," she encouraged, leaning forward. Her enthusiasm echoed in his mind, but it didn't quell the storm inside. "Yeah, but what if I mess it up?" he confessed, the words spilling reluctant truth. "I don't feel ready." "Preparedness often comes from a place of uncertainty," she said thoughtfully. "Take some time leading up to the interview to work on your pitch, but also focus on what you bring to the table. You have lived experiences that shape your vision. Don't underestimate them. Jake nodded, trying to absorb her insights. It was strange how succumbing to vulnerability had fostered this newfound clarity. As he reflected on the past few days with Mia, he began recognizing the qualities he'd overlooked in himself: the resilience honed through personal struggles, the creative angles he had yet to explore, and the undeniable passion that propelled him forward. But like a tightrope walker facing the wind, he knew he had to balance those positive realizations with a structure to support them. How do I even start? He asked, searching her face for answers. Mia relaxed slightly, her eyes focused and calm. Let's break it down. Ask yourself, what's the core of your vision? What problems are you solving? And, most importantly, what story are you telling about yourself and your journey? Practice weaving it all together until you feel confident. Finding that framework created a flicker of determination within him, but Jake still felt unsteady. The fear that had buried itself deep within him threatened to resurface with every mention of the interview. How could someone as inexperienced as he had been ever impress seasoned professionals? All right, he said reluctantly. But what if I stumble? What if I forget the key points? Mia's gaze softened. That's okay. People connect with authenticity. If you're genuine, they'll see your drive, your ambition. They might even appreciate your vulnerability. Remember, it's their job to spot potential, and you are it. Her words struck him like a missing puzzle piece finding its place, invigorating yet daunting. With her encouragement still ringing in his ears, he began mapping out his talking points, jotting down ideas on a napkin. The surroundings blurred as the cafe noise faded temporarily, reality folding in on itself. After what felt like hours, he had sketched a raw outline of his vision and story. This was something he could refine later, but it felt honest, a representation of who he was. As Jake looked up, he knew he had begun to chip away at a layer of self-doubt that had long haunted him. However, Jake's sense of triumph faltered when Mia's expression changed. It was subtle yet significant, her excitement had dimmed slightly. What's wrong? He asked, concern peppering his tone. Well, I want to help you with this, but you also need to consider whether this accelerator is truly the right fit for what you want to build, she replied gently. Sometimes, the allure of opportunity can blind us to our own vision. Her words cut deep and created a new wave of confusion. Was he chasing validation, or was this genuinely aligned with his aspirations? As he wrestled with this new dilemma, he felt the pressure of impending decisions bearing down on him. Jake realized he was not just on the verge of an opportunity, he was standing at a crossroads that could impact the trajectory of his entire future. And just as those thoughts settled in formation, a new message pinged through on his phone, drawing his focus once more. This was neither a distraction nor mere coincidence. It felt like another challenge was emerging, waiting to test his resolve. Would it clarify his path, or compound the confusion? The next chapter of his journey was set to ignite once again, demanding his attention and commitment. With a deep breath, Jake swiped at the notification on his phone. It wasn't an expected response from the accelerator but rather a message from Tyler, swaying between casual banter and urgency. Got your back. Let's meet up tomorrow and we'll flesh out your pitch. I know you've got this. Jake hesitated for a moment, fingers hovering over the keyboard as doubt crept back in. What if Tyler's support turned to disappointment? Thoughts spiraled. What if he wasn't ready? What if he messed everything up? Yet, the idea of moving away from self-doubt was a magnet pulling him to push that little icon and respond positively. Sure, he finally typed, trying to ward away the panic forming in the pit of his stomach. Let's do it. The next day, Tyler greeted him with an enthusiastic slap on the shoulder, as if they were old pals catching up. The coffee shop buzzed with life, but Jake felt a heavy fog of fear hovering around him. As they found a corner table, Tyler leaned in, his voice bright with optimism. First off, what's your narrative? I want to hear it as if you're pitching to investors. Jake swallowed hard. I don't know if I have one yet, he admitted. I just feel all over the place. What if I can't convey it the way I need to? Let's break it down, Tyler suggested, eyes sparkling with the challenge. What's the why behind your idea? He leaned back, crossing his arms, ready to engage. The question hung there, heavy yet liberating. Jake began to piece together thoughts, tracing the genesis of his ambition and experiences that had fueled it all. The careless abandon of youth working with old gears in his father's garage, the painful lessons learned when his first venture collapsed, the drive to create solutions for others who struggled through similar circumstances. I want to build something that matters, he said slowly, the words taking form. I want to empower single parents like my own mom who are just trying to make ends meet while juggling multiple responsibilities. I know that struggle. Tyler nodded, pushing away his coffee cup, captivated. Now we're getting somewhere. You're not just selling an idea, you're selling your story. Make them feel your journey, Jake. People invest in people, not just products. As Jake spoke, he felt a flicker of confidence ignite, filling the hollow parts of him. It was a glimpse of clarity, though just a spark he needed to fan it into a flame. But just as it started to feel manageable, an unsettling thought crept back into his mind. Was he truly capable of leading this initiative? Would those investors see him as just another hopeful kid with big dreams, or could they see the genuine heart beating behind his words? With determination bubbling beneath the surface, he pushed that fear aside. What happens after I pitch? What if I don't get selected? He queried, anxiety creeping back in. Tyler leaned back, fiercely confident. Then you adapt. You iterate. Revisit your vision. The point is to enhance your capability, not just nail the interview. It's about growth. Those words reverberated within Jake. He grasped that the accelerator opportunity wasn't merely a validation of his ambitions, but a stage for development, a crucible to hone his skills. He sat straighter, something within shifting as he started to understand that the path is often more significant than the destination secured. As they finalized their session, the chatter of the cafe receded. There was a clarity in his mind, forging a connection between his personal struggles and professional aspirations. Jake felt ready to tackle the story he wanted to share and defend his vision for those who resonated with it. But just as he felt that precipice solidify, a voice interrupted his thoughts, a familiar one that jostled old worries. You're not cut out for this, Jake, a haunting echo mimicked from a distant past. It was that ever-present internal critic, sneering in disbelief. In that moment, Jake faced an unexpected choice: fight against his lingering inadequacies or negotiate with them. Would this moment define him? And as he grappled with that decisive fork in his path, another message from the accelerator rolled in. We'd like to discuss your application further. Each word propelled him deeper into a vortex of uncertainty and possibility, demanding an answer that loomed too close for comfort. Would he trust himself enough to step forward or fade into the shadows of doubt? The ringing of Jake's phone jolted him from his spiral of doubt. He stared at the screen, his heart racing at the prospect of the accelerator's message being something more definitive, yet terrifying. He was being asked to delve deeper into his application. Did this mean they saw potential in him, or was it another game of wishful thinking? Jake, you okay? Tyler asked, concern etching his features as he noticed Jake's pale complexion. Yeah, just. Jake wiped his palm on his jeans, collecting his thoughts. They want to discuss my application further. See? That's a good sign. You need to seize that momentum, Tyler encouraged, leaning forward with that trademark enthusiasm. But despite Tyler's wholesomeness, the old critic inside him rumbled again, sending a scathing message. What if they realize you're just pretending? Jake bit his lip, battling the frustration bubbling inside. He wanted desperately to silence that darker voice, to believe he could step confidently into the world he so aspired to be a part of. In years past, he'd spent more time convincing himself he belonged in the shadows than in the spotlight, but perhaps this was the turning point, the invitation to finally emerge. So where do we go from here? Jake asked, his voice steadier than he felt. Identify the essence of your pitch. Hone it. Build a mock-up if needed. And let us practice until you can present it with conviction. That way, you won't just recite it, you'll own it. Tyler's intensity was infectious, lighting up Jake's internal flame. They spent the next hour brainstorming, reworking phrases into something impactful. Within the words, Jake stumbled across a revelation, his passion tinged not only with obstacles but also with insights and grit. Each minute they focused on his story transformed the pitching dread into an opportunity to connect deeply with potential investors. He envisioned the audience blank faces morphing into empathetic expressions as he unveiled the layers of his experience. Still, a nagging fear echoed as Tyler urged him to practice. What if they don't connect the dots? Jake's voice tightened. What if my journey feels inadequate for the stakes? Then make it relatable. Show them the raw truth, the doubt, the struggle, all of it. Realness resonates more than polish. You're not just another entrepreneur, you're a person with a mission. Tyler leaned in closer, embodying every ounce of his belief. And so they practiced. The unfamiliar anxiety surged through Jake until it coalesced into a redefined determination. He wouldn't shy away from vulnerability. Leaning into his past crafted a resonance he hadn't anticipated, awakening something within that felt like home. The cafe's bustle became a feature of their rehearsal, each sound gradually fading into white noise as Jake found his footing. By the end of their session, he felt all at once invigorated and exhausted. If acceptance into the accelerator hadn't been about validation, he began to see it as transformation instead. Remember, they're going to ask tough questions, Tyler reminded him, finally taking a breather. Don't let that throw you off balance. Prepare for them. Yeah, like what? Jake asked, uncertain of what to anticipate. Like why you think you're qualified to solve this problem. The clarification shattered Jake's momentary triumph, launching a new wave of anxiety. What made him qualified, really? His experiences? His identity? The burden of those labels was not just a badge of honor but also a quiet prison he hadn't acknowledged. The air was thick with possibility, yet suffocating as he grappled with the implications of his self-image. He had to uncover how to express his legitimacy while confronting overwhelming imposter syndrome. After dismissing Tyler with a grunt of thanks and a weak smile, Jake stared out into the bustling street. The world carried on, and yet he stood still, overwhelmed by the weight of an impending reality. Could he navigate this inner turmoil and transform it into the narrative he so yearned to share? With the deadline looming closer, Jake was forced into an introspective journey. Would he brave the authenticity needed to shape his identity, or would he remain ensnared, pitted against his own doubts? As the evening sun dipped below the horizon, his phone buzzed. For real this time, another message. We need your final pitch by end of the week. Let us make it count. Jake felt the ground rumble beneath him. It was now or never. Would he rise to embrace the challenge, or would he crumble under the weight of expectation? The sun streamed through the worn curtains of Jake's apartment, illuminating the frayed edges of his trusty backpack, a remnant of his past struggles and a symbol of resilience for his journey ahead. He sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by crisp sheets of paper, notes, and a half-empty mug of coffee. Today was the day he would refine his pitch for the accelerator and face the opportunity he had both craved and dreaded. Across the room, Lily giggled as she played with her toys, her laughter lifting the weight off Jake's shoulders. His daughter was a reminder, a beacon of hope that urged him to embrace his aspirations. Reflecting on the advice from Mia and Tyler, he understood that he was ready to shed the self-imposed limitations that had shackled him for too long. Jake took a deep breath, tuning into the rhythm of his heartbeat. Today, he was not just a single father, he was a man on the threshold of transformation. He was determined to convey not just an idea but his authentic narrative, a testament to perseverance, growth, and the drive to make a difference. Those layers of vulnerability and strength he had once hidden now demanded to be shared. He began to craft his pitch with renewed energy. His vision was clear: provide a service that empowered single parents like him, recognizing their unique struggles, and offering solutions that could ease their burdens. He even considered the challenges he had faced: nights spent stressing over bills, moments of doubt, the struggle to balance work and parenting, and turned these into compelling chapters of his story. As the hours melted away, Jake found himself lost in the process. At last, he had a cohesive narrative that encapsulated who he was and why he was driven to create something meaningful. With each word he wrote, he transcended from being merely a statistic to a potential leader with a clear mission. The night before the interview, anxiety coursed through him, and he nearly succumbed to doubt as obscured reminders echoed in his mind. What if he bombed the pitch? What if they didn't see his potential? But he forced himself to remember the highs and lows he had traversed. He had overcome challenges before, each step molding him into the resilient person he was today. The day arrived. As he approached the venue for his accelerator interview, he channeled that nervous energy into confidence, standing tall as he equipped himself with a clear intention. He was prepared to demonstrate that his past didn't define him but rather fueled his passion to seize this opportunity. In the interview room, amidst the panel of knowledgeable investors, the dim lights flickered overhead. Jake's palms were sweaty, but as soon as he opened his mouth, a wave of strength washed over him. He presented his story, threading together experiences that illustrated not just his qualifications but his soul and heart behind the vision. With each moment, Jake banished the specter of imposter syndrome. He was exactly where he was meant to be. After the pitch, questions began to flow. Jake envisioned them as an opportunity to share, engaging earnestly and reflectively, utilizing the knowledge he'd gathered through mentorship and his own lived experiences. He was driven by the weight of the moment, the responsibility exceeding any previous fears, transmuting them into passionate responses that outlined not just his ideas but the very essence of who he was as a father and a dreamer. Months from this moment, when he received the acceptance letter from the accelerator, Jake didn't just celebrate, he acknowledged a victory that extended beyond the business realm. He marked the beginning of a journey, one that showcased his transformation from a mere delivery driver to an aspiring entrepreneur capable of crafting meaningful change. He had achieved a newfound identity, one reflecting both personal ambition and rightful belonging. Lily cheered when he shared the news, her radiant joy blending with his overwhelming sense of accomplishment. No longer restrained by societal expectations, Jake stepped into his role. Forged through hardship, honesty, and an authentic narrative. As he moved forward, ready to tackle the new challenges ahead, he recognized the power of connection. Jake had learned capabilities to not only build a business but also foster meaningful relationships. With the accelerator's support, he could transform his vision into reality, rooted in resilience from both his journey and his daughter's laughter that served as a continuous reminder of what truly mattered. In this pivotal shift, Jake wasn't just a man defining his future, he became a symbol of hope for others, proof that sometimes a modest backpack can carry the most significant dreams. Now, dear viewers, this is the moment you need to seize. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that can inspire your own journey. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your engagement makes a difference. We want to hear from you. Comment your reactions and theories about Jake's incredible journey. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this powerful conclusion.